Okay. Uh, is this team? I don't know how to word this properly. Can they be that bad for 2 straight defensive years? And when I say that, like, are these bottom 4 guys that bad, or is this a structural, foundational issue with the Ottawa Senators and the coaching staffs and how they prepare this team to play defense?
Ooh, that's the million dollar question, right? It's one
It
one of
really
two
is.
things, right? It's either a roster construction issue or it's a
Yeah.
tactical issue. I think if you ask most people, they would say it's a roster construction issue, right? Like I think if you look around the league, like I think this team would have looked a lot different with a Ryan Graves or somebody else in the top 4. We're having a different conversation here. But now you're asking some people who probably shouldn't be playing 19 minutes a night to play 19 minutes a night. And so I'm a believer that I think that, and I'm sure we'll get to my watching Jake Sanderson here. I think at some point,
Yes, we will.
this is going to be fixed. It's going to be fixed. But the problem I think that a lot of fans have is they've watched a lot of mistakes being made by guys who really aren't going to be here when this is going to be a playoff contender, right? I think everybody's willing to live with mistakes, and you'd be willing to live with if Brandstrom's serving up some pizzas, okay, let's let him grow and learn. But when guys who 18 months from now aren't going to be here and they're the ones making the mistakes, there's not much of a palette for that in this marketplace. This is a very intelligent and patient fan base. They just want to see the young guys. Like everyone is just screaming for the young guys to play. And I think that's exactly what Eric Brandstrom is.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so Mathen, you explain this to me. If we say the rebuild is over, which they should never have come out and publicly said, because it just adds to a whole lot of people just jumping on it, and I'm included in one of them because I think it was a silly mistake to make. Then do we play all the young kids and say, well, let's forget about the mistakes? The whole point was that we didn't need to play all the young kids and play mistakes and have mistakes because the rebuild is over and they've constructed a team that's now going to push for a playoff spot. That's not ever even close to happening right now.
Yeah, well, and I guess to Ian's point, because I'm agreeing with him on this one for sure. I think ultimately it just comes down to what Ian just said. What do you want to watch out there, and what is the expectation level of the group, right? So, as a management or internally in the organization, what are you expecting of this group? I think the transparent truth to all this is that you just want them to be in contention for most of the year, right? You don't want them to be clear cut out of it by Christmas because you want to keep the fan base engaged. These are conversations that typically you won't hear from management openly in public when they're talking to the media because it doesn't always sound genuine and it's kind of vague. But you don't want this team like come Christmas time or the Olympic break, whenever it is. You want to make sure that your team is still technically in the mix so that there's still a lot of engagement with the fan base so that you're still filling the building with as many fans as you can. And if you lose all that interest because you're just playing brutal every other night because of a lot of vets that are in the lineup that maybe shouldn't be there right now or some glaring holes back there on the back end, that's going to frustrate people and people are going to start to just lose interest in watching the games or at least paying to go see them play, right? So people value their hard-earned money. And when you're paying 100 and whatever amount of dollars per ticket to go watch a professional hockey team, whether they're still in a rebuild or not, you still want to see them be competitive, right? So that's why I understand that they don't necessarily need to go get some rental top 4 defensemen. They're not going to win the Stanley Cup this year. I know that. But you also want the team to take a step forward this year. You don't want to take another step back where you're at the bottom of the basement going into the offseason going like, geez, like what did we really gain from this year? And then you're losing season ticket holders. You're losing money. So, winning is money. And so, I can't really communicate what I'm trying to say as eloquent as most people can. I'm not a writer like you guys or anything, but ultimately what I'm trying to get across is I still think they need to go after somebody. And I'm sick of them going after the 30-year-olds that can barely keep up. Like, maybe you have to give up a little bit here, but there are players around the NHL in their 20s that still have a little juice in the tank that are going to be serious upgrades from what is back there right now. Go after a guy that has 2 years left on his deal that's struggling this year, but can still at least skate well, and you can integrate him into the lineup, and he won't be a complete liability every night. So easier said than done. I understand that, but I guess the big point I'm trying to make is you want a competitive team. You got to know what your expectation level is. I still think you go after a guy, stabilize that back end, maybe keep Brandstrom up. We'll see how he does, and things will be okay. But you got to keep the fans interested. That's the main goal here.
Mendez.
Well, you know what's
That's a mouthful.
What a great question, Mendez. I got to tell you,
chime in?
I think what's really upsetting if you're an Ottawa fan, and this is a legitimate question: have the Detroit Red Wings passed Ottawa in the rebuild?
Oh,
like, is Detroit
yes.
headed on a better path? And that's what's frustrating. Like, you look over there, you're like, how come those guys are 6-5-2 or whatever their record is? That's what we thought Ottawa would be, or that's what we were told that they would be. So, and it's early in the season. I'm willing to be super patient, but that's what's frustrating. I don't want to look at Buffalo. It's a different situation. I look at Detroit and I say that they really bottomed out, and you see some of their kids coming in, and Lucas Raymond looks good, and boy, Moritz Seider looks like he could be a Norris Trophy guy 3-4 years from now. That's all you want, right? You want to see some on ice success, and it's being done by the young kids. And so that to me is what's frustrating as an Ottawa fan. You're okay. Yeah. No Ottawa fan came into this season saying we're going to be a playoff team. I think all of them said we're going to come in and take a step forward. And 10 games in, it's really hard for me to sit here and tell you that they've taken a step forward. That's all.
Yeah, and to that point, it's like, sorry, Wally, I didn't mean to cut you off there. There's a delay. Nope. Are we having this conversation if we have a stable goaltender and a reasonably average defense core? Like, is this, you know what I mean? Like, because we have the forward depth, at least up front. Like, look at our top line. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like the glaring obvious truth here is that the back end is a disaster. And when you're not getting your forwards the puck, or when you're not keeping the puck out of your own zone, you're just exhausting all your time and energy defending every night. And so, your offensive production is going to go down significantly, which it has been. You're not going to get the same chances, and the morale goes down too in the group, right? Because it's demoralizing as a player when you're a relatively good player on a team, but you're probably going to have a tough time winning games because of certain issues that aren't being addressed. So I guess that's my question is, are we having these conversations if there was a more stable back end and goaltending? I don't know. I guess I know we're not very deep on those bottom two lines up front, but they're still competitive to a degree. But the back end's a mess. I keep harping on this because I think that would turn everything around.